Hi everyone, it's the twist that nobody saw coming. Barry Morphew, who's long been under the microscope in the mysterious 2020 disappearance of his wife Suzanne, has just been arrested in Arizona. And while the murder took place in the shadows of Colorado's Rocky Mountains, Barry is now being held in the desert heat of Arizona, perhaps very close to where Lori Daybell's sitting. And he's waiting to be shipped back to face murder charges. Well, that journey called extradition isn't just paperwork and handcuffs. It's one of the more crucial moves in this high-stakes criminal case, and I want to dig into it. Well, hey everybody, welcome to Profiling Evil. I'm really glad that you're here. I'm here in the mountains in northern Utah, just taking some time away. But before we dive into this developing case, the case involving Barry Morphew's arrest and his extradition, do me a quick favor and hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And please make sure that you turn on notifications so that you don't miss a single update from Profiling Evil. And hey, please share us with your friends. The more eyes and chats on these cases, the better. It helps us all learn together. And let's go behind the headlines and take a deeper look at the behaviors, the investigation, and those legal nuances like extradition that often get overlooked in mainstream coverage. Now around here, we're kind of focused on understanding the why behind the crime. So thanks for being part of this community of critical thinkers. Now, Barry Morphew was taken into custody during a traffic stop. It was near a trailer park where he was living in Cave Creek, Arizona. That's about 30 miles north of the metropolitan Phoenix area. Now, according to reports, he'd been living in one of those trailers, and he was living with one of his daughters by all reports. Now, it's a stark contrast to that spacious Colorado home that he once shared with Suzanne and his daughters. And it raises some interesting questions, more around what resources does he have left to mount an aggressive legal defense. You know, the first time around, we saw him bring in some high-powered legal folks. It remains to be seen whether they're going to help in this case or stand in, but from a report from the Associated Press, Colorado attorney David Beller has been identified as his representative. And this guy is a seasoned Colorado-based defense lawyer. He's known for his work in criminal law, for attorney discipline, and internal investigations. He's got more than 20 years of experience, and he's worked as a public defender, and he's a partner at a company called Recht Kornfeld. I hope I got that right. He's been widely recognized for his litigation skills and his leadership, according to his bio. And he served as president of the Colorado Criminal Defense Bar. And he's already come out and made some statements in Barry's behalf. So what does it really mean that Barry Morphew has waived extradition in this case? And frankly, why does it matter in the grander scope? Let's kind of break it down and start with the request that comes in. You see, when one state wants their suspect back, extradition proceedings start with a formal request. Now, in Barry Morphew's case, the state of Colorado believes that they have enough evidence to prosecute him for Suzanne's murder. But Barry is sitting in Arizona, and Colorado can't just roll in with a posse and drag him back. Instead, prosecutors and state officials have to file what's called a governor's warrant request, asking the Arizona governor to honor the arrest and send Barry back. Now, this request includes providing a certified copy of the arrest warrant or the indictment that came from that grand jury, along with any documentation that shows that Barry is wanted in Colorado. The packet must include a clear explanation of the charges that Barry Morphew is facing, murder in this case, and all other information needed for the transport. So let's talk a little bit about the governor's role, the official green light that has to be given. Here's where the governors step in. Now the governor of Colorado, a guy named Jared Polis, makes a formal request to Arizona's governor. And under the U.S. Constitution's extradition clause, the receiving state, in this case Arizona, is supposed to comply. Now that's set across, because once Arizona's governor reviews the paperwork and confirms it's in order, her name is Katie Hobbs, the governor there, authorizes Barry's arrest as a fugitive from justice. Now, this act doesn't determine guilt or innocence. It simply respects the legal process between the two states. And this is worth noting because decades ago, states had the discretion in whether they would comply with these kinds of extradition requests. But thanks to the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Puerto Rico versus Branstad, that was in 1987, governors can no longer refuse an extradition request just because they feel like it. The law demands cooperation, and federal courts can now enforce that. Rarely, I can't think of any time that it's actually been denied, at least in my experience. And I've served a number of these extradition orders where I've gone and picked up someone in another state and flown them back to my home state of Utah to be processed through the criminal process. Now let's talk about number 3, the arrest and the hearing. And this is when Arizona officially puts Barry Morphew in custody. And that occurred when he was arrested. After that green light was issued, Barry was arrested in Arizona as a fugitive. Not because of a new Arizona charge that came out of anything. He was stopped in a traffic stop, and it may have been just a reason to get him stopped in a controlled circumstance where they could take him safely into custody. But he was stopped because he's wanted in Colorado. Now, from that traffic stop, he was brought to the jail and then before a local Arizona judge. Now, this hearing isn't about his guilt. It's all about confirming 3 simple facts. Number 1, are the documents from Colorado valid? Is this same Barry Morphew that they have in custody the same one that's named in the charges? And is there reason to believe that Colorado has him and can bring him back? And of course, also in that hearing, to ask him if he wants to waive extradition or if he wants an extradition hearing. Now here's the moment that often surprises people, because Barry did have the right to fight extradition. He could have contested this whole thing, claiming mistaken identity, bad paperwork, or he could have just done it to delay things through a habeas corpus petition. Some fugitives drag the process out, and sometimes it goes on for months. But not Barry. He didn't contest it one bit. And let me preface this by saying it's kind of hard to blame Morphew for waiving extradition. I mean, after all, we just listened to weeks of Lori Daybell practically begging the court to send her anywhere but Maricopa County. Well, Barry might be thinking, get me out of here before they turn my bunk into a cactus. Well, Barry Morphew not contesting may say something, though, and we have to kind of consider a couple of things. We have to ask ourselves, is this a legal strategy that he's put in play? Or is it just an admission of the inevitable, that he's going to be sent back anyway? Or maybe he's just plain confident that he's going to beat the charges in Colorado again and come home and maybe have them drop charges like they did before. Regardless, he waived his right to fight extradition, which fast-tracks everything. And now the state of Colorado has just 30 days to get him back. So let's watch that hearing in its entirety. It's really short, but it is informative.
Good evening, sir. Can I get your name and date of birth?
Barry Morphew, 10/17/67.
Thank you, sir. And it does look like you are here today on a warrant from the state of Colorado, and they have indicated that they want to extradite you back to the state of Colorado. Did you get an opportunity to review that laminated card that was given to you today?
Yes.
Okay. So you have a choice to make here today. You have 2 options, and we're going to go over what your options are. So first, let's discuss what you're here for. There is, again, a warrant from the state of Colorado. They've indicated they do want to extradite you back to the state of Colorado related to an offense charge of homicide. In this case, you have the option of stating, I am ready to be returned to the state of Colorado. If you were to choose to do that, you would be waiving your rights to any hearings here in Maricopa County. You say, I'm ready for Colorado to come pick me up. If you choose to do that, you would be held here in the Maricopa County jails, non-bondable, for up to 30 days, giving Colorado 30 days to come pick you up. That 30 days would start tomorrow, so long as you do not have any local pending charges here in the state of Arizona. In the alternative, I could set a hearing here in Maricopa County on June 30th, 2025 at 1:30 in the afternoon. In this case, you would be stating you want to have an extradition hearing, and before you're extradited back to Colorado, you're demanding that both governors, the governor of Arizona and the governor of Colorado, sign a warrant requiring you to be extradited back to Colorado before you do that. That process takes about 60 to 90 days. That hearing that I would set here in Arizona is civil in nature, meaning you would not be entitled to court-appointed counsel, but you could hire an attorney at your own expense if you would like to for that hearing. If you were to choose that option, you are eligible for bond. In this case, you have a cash-only bond of $3 million. If you posted that bond, you'd have written conditions of release you'd need to comply with. You would also need to ensure you attended that hearing on June 30th. If you failed to appear at that hearing, you would now have a warrant out of Maricopa County. Your Colorado warrant would still be valid, and you would forfeit the bond that you posted. Based on that information, do you know what option you would like to do here today, sir?
I'd like to waive.
You'd like to waive your rights here today and go ahead and say you're ready for Colorado to pick you up? Okay. Since we are waiving some important rights, I'm just going to go ahead and ask you some important questions before we do that, and then we will get some of your signatures, okay? So, again, I just want to confirm you did read the waiver of extradition paperwork, which was that laminated card?
Yes.
Okay. And you do understand that you do not have to sign this paperwork?
Yes.
And you do understand that you have the right to an extradition hearing? That would be that hearing on June 30th?
Yes.
And do you understand that you have the right to hire a lawyer at your own expense?
Yes.
And do you understand you have the right to demand that a governor's warrant be signed by both governors of each state before you're returned?
Yes.
And do you understand that you would have a right to bail, in this case, a cash bond of $3 million?
Yes.
And do you want to give up those rights and sign this paperwork?
Yes.
And has anyone threatened you or promised you anything to get you to sign this paperwork?
No.
And have you had any drugs, alcohol, or medication within the last 24 hours?
No.
I find that you are knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily signing this waiver, and I am also going to sign it. I am directing the Sheriff's Office to notify the requesting state that you are ready to return. The requesting state will have 30 days from tomorrow to pick you up unless you have local charges pending. If you have local charges pending, then the 30 days will not start until the conclusion of that case. Did you have any questions, sir?
No.
Okay. In just one moment, we are going to ask you to step up here. We're going to need a couple of signatures from you to indicate you are waiving those rights. Okay, if you'll just come right over here, she'll tell you when.
Now, the fourth thing I want to talk about is the actual extradition, this long ride home. Because once that judge signed off and Barry decided not to contest this thing, the countdown begins. And agents, typically from Colorado law enforcement, will have 30 days to come and pick Barry Morphew up and take him back to Colorado. If they don't, Arizona technically could release him. But don't worry. When somebody's charged with murders, the authorities don't drag their feet. And I suspect we're going to see him back in Colorado probably before the end of the week. Now, this transport is done quietly and securely, without any drama of news cameras. I mean, think of unmarked vehicles, shackles, long drives under the watchful eye of trained officers. There's nothing glamorous about it. These things are really grinding. I mean, I remember flying people back from other states and having to board the airplane 30 minutes, an hour before anyone else got on, having to talk with the pilot, make sure that the pilot knew you were carrying your weapon, that you had someone in shackles that was sitting between you and your partner on in the back of the plane usually right in the very back near the restroom. That way you can keep control and keep fewer eyes on this person. This is all about bringing the accused person to justice. But frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if the state of Colorado doesn't let a little bit of information out to allow the press to capture some of the shots of Morphew arriving in that Colorado jail where he's going to await his next court date. Now, the fifth thing I want to talk about is time limits, because the clock is ticking. And I mentioned it earlier, but by law, every state has to hold that person that's arrested and being held for extradition for 30 days after their arrest, while they wait for the state that's requesting them to come and retrieve them, Barry in this case. In some states, that can actually be stretched to 90 days under some special circumstances, but typically the timeline is tight. The goal's simple. Get this guy back to the jail where he's going to be processed. Don't let fugitives sit around longer than they need to. And with Barry waiving his right to fight, there's no delay. He's now in the fast lane to get back to Colorado, right where prosecutors want him, and frankly, perhaps where he's closer to his defense counsel. So, number 6, I want to talk about this, even though it's not the case in this particular event, but I want to talk about contesting extradition when they decide to take the road not usually pursued. So let's pause and look at what Barry could have done, because fugitives often contest extradition for a few reasons. They say they're not the person that's in the warrant, or they argue that the crime isn't extraditable, or they claim that the paperwork is flawed. They can also file this thing called a writ of habeas corpus that challenges the legality of their detention. It's a constitutional right that protects people from unlawful imprisonment, and it's the only way to appeal an extradition order. But Barry just chose not to do that, so all of that's off the table. He didn't ask for more time. He didn't fight. He let the wheels of justice turn. And maybe because he's got confidence in getting off. Or maybe because his legal team knows that fighting extradition is a losing battle. But either way, his signature on those waiver documents spoke volumes. So let's talk about number 7, the big picture of why this matters. You see, extradition isn't just a technicality. It's a gateway to justice, because without it, suspects could simply hop state lines and avoid prosecution. The Morphew case reminds us of how powerful and necessary this process is. And now, as Barry Morphew heads back to Colorado, the story shifts gears. The investigators are going to continue to get ready for their part in this whole criminal justice process. Prosecutors are going to be in front of judges. The court's going to have to decide, most likely with a jury, whether Barry is guilty of murdering Suzanne or not. But none of this can happen without the step of extradition when the person isn't in the state where the crime is committed. Extradition is the bridge between accusations and accountability. And waiving extradition isn't just a throwaway move. And Morphew waiving his right to fight extradition essentially says that he's not going to stand in the way of being returned to Colorado, the people who want to prosecute him. And frankly, I think there's a couple of reasons why he might be doing this, so I want to just cover those. First, he and his defense team might think that fighting extradition is a losing battle. And why be involved in it? Avoid a losing battle and all of the publicity that comes with that. Extradition fights are rarely successful, especially when the paperwork from the demanding state is solid. Courts only look at whether the person is charged with a crime and whether they're the right person in the charging documents. And once they confirm that the documents are in order and it's the right person, there's little to stand in the way. Now, Morphew knew that his legal team wouldn't have much ground to contest any of that, so dragging it out might make him look worse to prosecutors, to judges, or to the public. Another reason why he might have done this is strategic legal optics. Waiving extradition might be a way to project confidence. Now, his defense could spin it as, we have nothing to hide here. Let's get back to Colorado and clear this misunderstanding up. Now, it sets a tone like he's not running, even if he was in a different state when arrested. And remember, he was living there. He wasn't necessarily running knowing that law enforcement was closing in on him. He'd been there reportedly for about 2 years. He wasn't fleeing Colorado. So waiving extradition gives his attorneys faster access to the court system. and to the discovery materials back in Colorado, rather than having to waste weeks in a holding pattern. And boy, when we think about discovery and we think back on what happened in that first episode when he was charged with Suzanne's murder, we know how important timely release of discovery material can be. Number 3, another reason why he may have come back is comfort and conditions. Because let's be honest, jails are not created equally. And if Barry believed he was sitting longer in a tougher Arizona jail than he needed to sit, he may have preferred to just get back to Colorado a little quicker. He's got experience there. He knows what to expect in that county jail. And more importantly, it's a place where his legal team is a little bit closer. And if he ends up in familiar circumstances, he could be in the same system, not the same jail because it's a different district. Now, another reason why he might have done this is to avoid public spectacle, because fighting extradition can create a whole bunch of unwanted headlines. I mean, just look at the number of headlines that have been out there with him saying, "I'm coming back." Imagine if he was fighting it. Especially these high-profile cases, it is optics that most people don't want. So waiving extradition keeps things quiet. It avoids unnecessary court appearances that draw cameras, public attention, all of that. And sometimes staying under the radar is part of the strategy. And finally, another reason might be keeping some of this leverage for later down the road. By not contesting extradition, Barry conserves his legal capital for bigger battles ahead, like the pretrial motions, the suppression hearings, plea negotiations, any of that. There's no need to burn energy or get engaged in a fight that he likely wouldn't win. So in the end, Barry's decision to not contest extradition is telling, but it doesn't speak to guilt or innocence. It just suggests a calculated legal move that quickly gets him back on familiar turf, a place where he's better prepared for the real fight that's ahead, the courtroom showdown over Suzanne's death. And for lack of a better word right now, BAM. Let's just recap how important BAM is and that grand jury indictment. And I'm going to read directly from the indictment to make sure I don't get anything wrong about that drug BAM. Quote, "A pharmacologist and a medical doctor testified about the toxicology, the testing done to determine the presence of BAM in Suzanne Morphew's remains, about the chemical compound itself, and about possible effects of that compound in humans. The expert explained that the toxicology testing done by the coroner's office met scientific standards of reliability and accuracy. The testing was done right. Now, the doctor further testified that BAM is a chemical mixture of 3 specific compounds used as a tool for sedating animals for medical treatment or for movement. Now, back in 2020 and the years that were leading up to Suzanne Morphew's disappearance, BAM was sold only by one company in the United States, and it could only be obtained by prescription from a veterinarian. BAM must be administered into the bloodstream through an intravenous, intramuscular injection to be effective, as the skin and GI tract don't absorb it effectively. Now, that's really important because anyone that suggests maybe she picked up a drink and it was a mistake or anything else, no, it has to be an injection. And I don't believe Suzanne would have injected herself with something that she didn't know what it was. Now, BAM does not cause sedation instantaneously. It takes several minutes to take effect. BAM is designed not to be lethal and comes with reversal agents in the prescription kit. However, BAM is not FDA approved for any human use. For that reason, there are no scientific studies available that address the possible effects that the compound would have on humans. The pharmacology expert testified that the compound would render the recipient wholly immobile, vulnerable, and unable to resist any constrictions to the recipient's ability to breathe, kind of tipping the hand that while the drug may not have killed Suzanne, it would be very easy at that point to do something like smother her. Now, records were obtained for BAM prescriptions related to Barry Morphew. Records were also obtained for BAM prescriptions for all persons within the counties and adjacent counties to where the Morphews lived and where Suzanne Morphew's remains were located. Those records showed that Barry Morphew obtained and filled several prescriptions for BAM while living in Indiana. Barry Morphew's last purchase of BAM by prescription was in March of 2018, 2 years before her disappearance. Barry obtained multiple kits that each contained multiple doses, just months before the Morphews moved to Colorado. Now, records further showed that no other private citizen or private business in any of the surrounding counties had purchased BAM from 2017 to 2020. The Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the National Park Service were the only entities that received prescriptions of BAM in those counties during that period, 2017 through 2020. And investigators learned that each of these government entities enforced tight regulations to monitor the BAM prescription storage and use. And none of the BAM from those agencies was unaccounted for. Ultimately, the prescription records show that when Suzanne Morphew disappeared, only one private citizen living in that entire area of the state of Colorado had access to BAM. That was Barry Morphew. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today, folks. I'd love to hear what you think, so please drop your thoughts down in the comments section below. And don't be shy about jumping into conversation with other people. Just remember to keep it kind and keep it respectful. We're all here to learn and explore together. And if you've been thinking about going to CrimeCon in Denver, right in the heart of things that happened with the Suzanne Morphew case, well, CrimeCon is happening in September in Denver, Colorado. And if you use this code word, my last name, K-I-N-G, King, when you sign up and register, you'll get a discount. I hope you'll take advantage of that. And I hope that we can see each other in Denver, Colorado during CrimeCon this year. You're not going to want to miss my presentation that I'll be doing. And thanks so much for watching Profiling Evil. Your support is deeply appreciated. Please make sure you're following along with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you like audio podcasts, please check out Profiling Evil's podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're hungry for even more true crime, head over to profilingevil.com, where I've got you covered with some really cool interactive maps. And don't miss the Suzanne Morphew story map. And while you're there, sign up for our digital newsletter, the BOLO. It stands for Be on the Lookout. And the only way you're going to get it is by signing up at profilingevil.com. And while you're on the website, check out my true crime books. You can find them in the section that says Store. And before we wrap up, I want to share something really exciting. My new book, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, is finally here for pre-order, and it's unlike anything I've ever written. The book pulls back the curtain on how predators hide in plain sight, how they manipulate, how they groom and control others, all while wearing this mask of normalcy. So whether you're a true crime enthusiast, a concerned parent, or just somebody who wants to better understand the dark side of human behavior, this is a book for you. And here's the cool part. You got 3 ways to get your hands on it. First, for those serious collectors and Profiling Evil super fans, I'm setting aside 100 hardbound, signed and numbered, author-only copies. Now, once they're gone, they're gone. And these are exclusive and available through profilingevil.com or through the link down below. Now, second, you can pick up a signed copy directly from me at profilingevil.com. And I'll even cover the shipping anywhere in the United States. But for those of you who live overseas, Amazon has you covered. Just search for Wolves in Sheep's Clothing by Mike King. and order it wherever you are in the world. Now, books are going to start shipping on July 7th, so however you choose to read Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, I just want to say thank you. Your support means the world to me, and most importantly, it gives us a chance to spot the wolves before they strike again. Hey, let's keep profiling evil going together. Thanks a lot for your support. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.